On this day 55 years ago, in a rubber plantation at a place called Long Tan, Australian forces inflicted a devastating defeat on a well prepared and vastly numerically superior enemy force in a bloody engagement dangerously close to the fledgling Australian Task Force base at Nui Dat. The date of the Battle of Long Tan, one of the many significant battlefield victories by Australian forces in Vietnam, was later to be adopted as Vietnam Veterans Day. From the time the first Australian troops landed in Vietnam until the final withdrawal in 1972, 521 made the ultimate sacrifice. Over 3,600 were wounded, and many more continue to suffer from war-caused trauma. Today, we also mark the 50th anniversary of the cessation of Australian combat operations in Vietnam in 1971, and the start of the return to Australia of the bulk of the Australian forces. So, today, this Vietnam Veterans Day, it's a time to reflect on the faithful, courageous and successful military achievements of the Australian forces in Vietnam by an army force of regular and conscripted soldiers, indistinguishable one from the other, by a professional Navy and Air Force providing vital battlefield firepower and support to ground troops. It is a time also to contemplate the terrible cost of lives lost, shattered and haunted, never to be the same. A time to contemplate the lot of brave men and women thrust back into a largely ambivalent and sometimes hostile society, and without support and empathy from the nation's government. And it is a time proudly to recount how Vietnam veterans banded together, brothers and sisters in arms, to overcome adversity, to finally win respect, and to take their rightful place among those of Australia's finest to have worn their nation's uniforms in a time of war.
I'm proud to be part of today's Vietnam Veterans Day commemorations. Today we remember the service and sacrifice of our Vietnam veterans, both those who are living and those who, unfortunately, are no longer with us. 2021 marks the 50th anniversary of the Australian Government's decision in 1971 to cease combat operations in Vietnam and disengage from this prolonged war. This is a significant anniversary for our Vietnam veterans, the Australian Vietnamese community and our nation more broadly. Honouring those who served is particularly important given the debate that surrounded the Vietnam War and Australia's involvement. At the time that our soldiers returned home from the war, unfortunately, many received a hostile reception. There certainly was no parades or celebrations. Vietnam Veterans Day was not recognised until more than a decade after the conflict ended, when it was proclaimed by the then Prime Minister Bob Hawke following the Welcome Home Parade in Sydney in 1987, where thousands showed up in the city to show support for those who had served. For the 34 years since, Vietnam Veteran Day has been an opportunity to continue the spirit by acknowledging the courage, service and sacrifice of those who served. Despite the uncertain times we are experiencing, it is critical that this acknowledgement continues. I thank the Vietnam Veterans Association of Australia, particularly the Victorian branch, for their tireless support for the veteran community. Your work has had a positive impact on the lives of so many Australian veterans, their families and serving personnel. It's paved the way for improved access to support, along with greater recognition of the impact of war and acknowledgement of service. Today we remember the more than 60,000 Australians who served in Vietnam, including the 521 soldiers that lost their lives and the over 3,000 that were wounded. We invite all Australians and Victorians to better understand and recognise their experiences of war. We will remember them, lest we forget.
These are the words of Bob Elworthy, President, Vietnam Veterans Association, Victoria. Bob says, "Today we commemorate the 55th anniversary of the Battle of Long Tan, to most Australia's most recognised battle of the Vietnam War. Today, we also mark the 50th anniversary of the cessation of Australian combat operations in Vietnam. A little over 5 years on from Long Tan, Australian and New Zealand weapons fell silent for the last time after the Battle of Nui Lay, September 1971, our last major battle during which we suffered our last battle casualties of the war. The withdrawal of the 4th RAR NZ Anzac Battalion from the Australian Task Force base at Nui Dat in early December, and the battalion's return to Australia shortly after, marked the end of the presence of our combat ground forces in Vietnam. The training team returned in 1972 and the Embassy Guard in 1975. Bob Elworthy reminds us, units of the Australian Defence Force engaged in many major actions during its time in Vietnam. Operations Crimp, Bribie, Coburg, Ivanhoe, the battles of Long Tan, Coral Balmoral, Bin Ba, Hat Ditch, Long Khan, Tet 68, Nui Lay, and many more are etched into the memory of Vietnam veterans and into our proud wartime history of devotion to duty, courage, ingenuity, tenacity, and bushcraft that saw us leave Vietnam never defeated by our then enemies, but thwarted by a lack of political will for the fight. It is testament to how highly the Australian Vietnam veteran is regarded that the names of the Australians killed in action were attached to the US 173rd Airborne Brigade and inscribed on the magnificent 173rd Airborne Memorial at Fort Benning, Georgia. That the Long Tan Memorial has been allowed to remain at the site of one of the Communist forces' worst defeats at the hands of the Australians is quite remarkable, and a further example of how highly our then enemies regarded us with a mixture of fear and respect. This is further illustrated post-war when the Communist government destroyed all traces of the South Vietnamese forces, including memorials and cemeteries, but the Long Tan Memorial remained. But for the Australian Vietnam veteran, the battles did not end in Vietnam and continue to this day. Vietnam veterans banded together to rail against federal government indifference and resist Canberra's best efforts to wipe their hands of the Vietnam problem. Bob Elworthy says, Vietnam veterans held the national government to account then and continues to do so today, and we poked the national conscience and in doing so challenged and changed the public perception of Vietnam veterans. Vietnam veterans persevered and won on 2 counts: to have our post-war issues addressed and to also ensure that no future Australian service person returning from operational service would be treated so shamefully. Proudly, we can say that Vietnam veterans have fought like hell for the living, among other achievements. I continue. Contributed significantly to the esteem in which our defence forces are now regarded. Played a major role in the conduct of our Welcome Home parades decades after the war was over. Drove the creation of the National Vietnam Veterans Memorial, created the National Vietnam Veterans Museum, took the Vietnam War story into schools, brought about significant changes to the repatriation system and veteran entitlement provisions, drove the creation of the best Defence Force member-focused mental health support system, the Vietnam Veterans Counselling Service, and proudly gifted the renamed service, the Veterans and Veterans Families Counselling Service, to future generations of veterans. Lobbied hard for the creation of the Coral Balmoral Psychological Trauma Recovery Service at the Repat Hospital, Heidelberg, including access for veterans. Tackled and finally helped get rid of the disgraceful and outmoded honour system used in Vietnam, which applied a quota on the number of awards for bravery. Continue to this day to challenge an Australian Defence Force highly resistant to supporting retrospective awards for bravery, and continue to challenge the historical, unfair and bureaucratic downgrading of bravery awards. President Bob Elworthy says, "To me, it beggars belief that apart from the Victorian Crosses awarded to brave members of the AATTV, that in all of the major and bloody actions in which another 60,000 Australians were involved, that not one other service person from the three services was worthy of the nation's highest honour." Caused the federal government to undertake a groundbreaking intergenerational health study of the effects of the Vietnam War on the veteran family. Created, maintained and delivered a training system for pensions and welfare advocates, and continue to guide younger generations through the compensation and rehabilitation maze. So, 50 years on from the laying down of our weapons, despite our advancing age, the Vietnam veteran movement remains strong, resilient and active. We can lay claim to being amongst the most productive, proud and recognisable group of any Australian returned service group. Our enduring comradeship and determination to look after our own in the face of adversity is unparalleled. So, 50 years on, maybe the only question left is, was it all worth it? Was the cost of lives lost, maimed or permanently damaged worth it? Was the price paid, and still being paid by veterans in our families and loved ones, worth it? I believe that just as the names of our fallen are etched on the wall of the Australian War Memorial, and in cemeteries across Australia and abroad, so too are the names of the fallen etched into the memories of their Vietnam veteran mates. To make sense of it all, to honour and value their sacrifice, and to hold fast to their memory, then surely the answer must be yes. 50 years on, you bloody magnificent Vietnam veterans, you unparalleled band of brothers and sisters, I salute you and join you in remembering the 521 not returned and all those who have passed on since. Lest we forget.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.